All right, we are looking at July 6th, 15th, did 14th yesterday. And so recapping what happened on the market profile, this is yesterday's action, right? We had the gap up, or not gap up, but just increase during the day. Bulls were in control, and this is the overnight action, right? So we are net long. In the overnight session, we did make new all-time highs. The all-time highs, technically in the overnight session, that doesn't count as all-time highs. I'm not sure exactly how to phrase that, but the all-time highs are not secure in the overnight session. So it does make the overnight high or the all-time high, which is the same thing, a little bit more weak. But essentially, what happened here? You take a look. This is where this is the close. This is the open of the overnight session. Spent some time inside of the yesterday's distribution, and then we started to build a lot of value on the upper third of the distribution with the point of control in the upper third as well. And we have the open today right around the point of control from last night. So a couple different scenarios that we're looking at for or that we can derive from the market profile here. First of all, gap rules are in play. Essentially, what that is anytime you have a close right here during the day session, and then you have the opening price significantly above that, this is a gap. Basically, you want to pretend like the overnight session isn't there. And so we have a close right here, open right here. That makes this entire area a gap. Now, what gap rules are is anytime you have a gap, it depends on the size as well. Larger gaps tend to take a little bit more time to fill. But if the gap does not start to fill, meaning price does not come down at least close to the close or close to another level, significant level, which would be this virgin point of control here, you want to go in the direction of the gap. And it needs to start to fill the gap relatively early. Otherwise, again, you want to go with the direction of the gap. So in this case, it would be long. If my take on today is if we do start to fill the gap, what my expectation would be is that we first take out this virgin point of control right here. That would be the first gap to fill to repair that. And then if we do hit that, my expectation is we are also going to fill the rest of this gap to the overnight or the yesterday's high right here. That would be my expectation. If we don't completely fill this gap to the virgin point of control, it's game on for longs, right? And what I'm looking at here is anything above this overnight high is new territory with little resistance. Price has never traded above those levels before. And so what I want to see is I want to watch to see how price interacts with that level as we approach it. And if I'm going to take a long there, if we are just going to continue to go up in price, the three things I want to see is high volume. I want to see high buying delta. And then I also want to see the pace increase as well. If price comes up to this level without filling the gap and we just kind of putz around that level, maybe even see some negative delta, the volume is pretty low, I don't have a lot of conviction that we're going to continue to go higher. That would be a good indication to short, but I'm not comfortable shorting until we fill this gap. There's just too much risk with that, even with low volume, low delta, and the pace sort of slow as well. So that would be my scenario one. I won't get to that quite yet. Just trying to run through this pretty quick. If on the short scenario, if we do start to fill this gap towards the point of control, I want to see the same things as we approach that level. I want to see the pace increase, the volume increase, and the delta increase as we approach that level. That will give me confidence in the short that we're going to fill the entire gap. Where I do see a potential for change, where that's right now we're bullish, all hands are on deck for bullish. If I am going to change my entire bias to short, that's where price would fill the entire gap except into yesterday's value area. And then that is where I think we have a potential to change, where price is at least going to traverse this entire area down to maybe might be too much to ask for price to traverse the entire value area from yesterday, but for sure, I would think that we'd be hitting the overnight low. So that is what the market profile is currently telling me. We'll go over here to the daily. We're above all these levels. We tried to take a peek into developing value area here and failed. These bars right here, if I go forward, it's going to show the entire July 15th bar where we opened and closed. But to give you some context here, this is where we're at. We're opening at basically all-time highs, the overnight high, which is right around here. So pretend there's a bar right here that, maybe opened right here, and it's currently right there. So again, just bullish behavior from the daily. And then moving on to the higher time frame here, the 15-minute or the weekly, as I'm going to call it. This is the volume distribution here again for the 20-day and the 5-day. There's no volume above here. That because we've never transacted, we've never had any trading above that level. There's not going to be any resistance up there. And the name of the game is, are we going to continue to increase, right? So I'm not really taking a whole lot from this chart simply because we're in uncharted territory. If we do start to fall, this would be a good entry point right here. You can see you got a low volume node on the 20-day, a nice shelf on the 5-day. And my expectation is that we would probably fall towards the value area high from the market profile. That's what this is, yesterday's value area high. That's a very loose level, but it is a little more secure, a little more concrete, just simply because that level is confluent with those low volume nodes right there. And so what else are we looking at here? So that basically sums it up. Where would I want to participate? What are my scenarios today? So what I'm looking at is if the gap does not fill, again, we've got the gap rules in play. If it doesn't fill, I want to enter around the opening price, assuming we have delta, volume, and pace on our side. If the gap starts to fill early on, I want to watch for the same conditions on the short side as we approach that virgin point of control right here, as we approach this from the 10th. And my expectation is if we fill that gap, because I think this high, if it is weak, then because it's overnight, then we're most likely going to at least fill this gap. And if we hit the point of control right here, my expectation is we're going to get down to the value area high from yesterday at the very least. And I want to see how price interacts with that level to find out if we're going to be going any lower. So those are the two scenarios that I have for today. Hit pause here. We'll find out how it works out. All right, so this is how the day played out on the market profile. As you can see, we basically sold and never looked back, right? We not only took out the virgin point of control right here, we took that out pretty quickly. So that's A period, which is the first 30 minutes, B period's the second 30 minutes, so on and so forth. A period took out the point of control. B period approached the value area high from yesterday. And then, everything else is history. We traversed the entire value area. We took out that point of control. Anything else of noteworthy in the market profile? We just continued to sell off the entire time, right? And that's what I said in the beginning. When we made an overnight high, or we made an all-time high in the overnight, that tends to be a little weaker, and the gap started to fill fairly quick. So that should tell you that we're likely going lower, and we're going to be realizing the overnight holders are going to be realizing their profits quick, and that's met with new sellers, which drives the price even lower. So that is the market profile. Let's quickly take a look at if this is telling us anything here. So if you remember, I believe right here was the low volume node. We didn't have a whole lot, but this is where I'd potentially get interested in taking shorts. That was going to be the point of control, the virgin point of control. Let me just take a look here real quick. Yeah, the virgin point of control is about right here, and that lined up with some low volume nodes, and then potentially taking a short somewhere in there. That's that's the higher time frame. That's not really for execution. So let's just go to the execution chart, take a look at that. Again, as we approach that level, what I wanted to see was high volume and high delta, and then approaching that level fairly quick. So here, right here, this is that virgin point of control. You see, we took that out, chopped around it a little bit. The way I'm reading this is that this is the developing value area. Once we entered into that area, laws of market dynamics say we're going to traverse the entire area. We did that pretty quick. We did that in 9 minutes from the open, right? So pretty much just rejected. We did that with some very strong selling delta, right? So you could even take an entry right off the open here. So you got 830 by 833. That's 833 right there. We had already come down to the VWAP. And then we went even further. So right there, 833, that's big selling delta, big high volume, and the pace is fairly quick. That's a green light, or rather a red light for the sellers. And we never really stepped off the gas. Okay, so again, we bridged that gap right here. We hit that point of control. I felt like if we were going to continue to go lower, if we were going to hit that point of control, we were going to go lower. We did. So really, there's a couple places that you could have entered here. You saw this selling right here. Something really important to remember is you have a lot of these overnight holders, long holders that want to realize their profits. They're all getting out right here. When they get out, what that is selling. When you sell, you're going to drive the market lower. That, in addition to new sellers, you have initiating selling, drives the market even lower. When you see really high volume like that, I'm not sure what the relative volume was for this day, but I promise it's pretty high, given how big these bars are and how big they were in prior days. This tells me that we have people that are realizing their profits, and then also you have new sellers coming in. Look at this. That's lower, big delta bars. That just tells me that we're likely going lower. So probably a couple screenshots I want to take of this in terms of where you could have accessed the trade. Right here, once we traversed that area and showed that we weren't going to be getting above the VWAP, that in addition to seeing all of this selling delta right here, that potentially was a good entry, depending on where the low volume node was. And then, because that's the only place that you want to be taking a trade, or at least for me in my system, is the low volume nodes. So I'm going to go back and I'll make another video of where I think the best entry would have been and why. But yeah, that first scenario played out, and the rest is history. Look at this. Look at the structure: lower, high, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low, lower, high, lower, low. The entire effing day. Look at it. And then at the very end, just big selling delta, big volume. Typically on these trending days like this, you close at the extremes, and today was no exception. So, all right, thanks.